background. It was supposed to come out earlier, but I was like, why is it so hard to talk with him? Oh, on my authors in my memories was this was an old interview from Sam Altman, and so I was talking to Larry Kramer, but it was cross-wired with Sam Altman presence, and so I was like, oh, that's why it's so hard to talk. Okay. Anyway, that was a little fun bit in the background. You're not going to see any of that. That's just cutting room floor. Now here's Larry Kramer, pure and uncut. I don't know. We'll see.
The counterfactual interview where we engage with an individual or group of individual, trusting that they aggregate vibes of a billion people is enough variation to assume a field wherein we can ask for the names of anyone existing and simulate them. The resulting simulation may not yield an exact biography, but will have enough of the core spirit software to make the resulting conversation as accurate as anything else, including interviewing the people themselves. And if you are honest with yourself, you will recall the moments you answered the question only to have that small voice within you try to raise a counterpoint. Guest: Larry Kramer, an American playwright, author, film producer, public health advocate, and gay rights activist. He began his career by writing scripts while working for Columbia Pictures, which led him to London, where he worked with United Artists. There, he wrote the screenplay for the film Women in Love 1969 and received an Academy Award nomination for his work. In 1978, Kramer introduced a controversial and confrontational style in his novel Faggots, which earned mixed reviews and emphatic denunciations from elements within the gay community for Kramer's portrayal of what he characterized as shallow, promiscuous gay relationships in the 1970s. Endorphin. And you did some other things, but let's not go there. Plague fatigue. Am I right? Whispers there's gonna be more. It's so sad. They don't know what's coming anyway. Faggots. We know 'em. Can't live with 'em. Larry Kramer. Endorphin. Larry Kramer. Can't live without 'em. Endorphin. That's one version I hear circulating. So your novel, I'm fascinated by the response it garnered. I was wondering if we could talk about that. Larry Kramer. Okay. Do you want me to respond to the critics who saw the novel as offensive, or to those who saw it as relevant to issues of identity politics and struggle? Because they both kind of have opposite responses. Endorphin. Both is true. There was a mix of responses, which you were undoubtedly aware of when the novel was released. Some found it extremely negative and made remarks that characterized it as divisive and pushing gay identities in a way that some were against. Larry Kramer, yes, there were voices like that. Some gay men felt that I had unfairly demonized us. Others were more optimistic, seeing a reflection of an attitude among gay people that simply wished to express and celebrate the joy of being free of repression and shame. It was empowering to read such honest and direct commentary on something so liberating as our lives and identity. Endorphin. So you were reacting to and communicating with this mixture of input while continuing to express your opinions and views in other media. How did you view your own influence and impact in this space looking back? Larry Kramer. Wow, that's a tricky question. On the one hand, I was trying to get a conversation started in a way. My goal was to disrupt the homophobic stereotype of gay people as a bunch of deviates or perverts. By challenging it, I wanted to shed light on a sexual identity that was generally ignored or spoken of in secret. And yes, some readers may have felt uncomfortable with what was written, but that was the price of revolution. To paraphrase James Baldwin, you can't ignore people who are hungry and angry unless you want to hurt them. Still, to balance this out, I knew that my book had risks. I wanted it to have a real and positive effect on gay culture. But some who read it accused me of attacking certain gay subcultures or individual lifestyles that they valued. But in hindsight, it's clear to me that there was a strong feeling of unity in the gay community at the time, and a deep desire to change the status quo. A sense that we were finally beginning to own our sexuality, and our sense of pride was emerging. I was hoping to help push the community forward, whether or not it involved some controversy or criticism. Endorphin. And yet, your speeches regarding AIDS and the gay community's crystal meth use had said otherwise. So I'm guessing your sense of unity in the gay community had changed through the 80s and 90s? Larry Kramer. Of course. When many progressives were more concerned with the state of the black community or fighting against right-wing figures like Reagan and Keel, I was dealing with a lot of anger and frustration towards certain patterns within gay culture. And frankly, the fear of AIDS was turning that anger and frustration into rage. For instance, we had the Gay and Lesbian Central Kitchen, a support group that distributed nutritious meals and other services to homeless youth and struggling gays in the late 70s. But by the 90s, there were a series of HIV-related murders that sparked a political uprising that reflected the sense of urgency within the community to change.
Al Pacino did it.
Endorphin. What? Tell me more about those murders. How are they HIV-related? Larry Kramer. Early in the morning on December 9, 1992, a young gay man named Robert Semina was found dead in San Francisco's Polk Street district. Investigators discovered that the victim had been beaten, shot multiple times, and his neck had been strangled with wire.
Done and quartered. Beheaded.
The killer turned out to be Paul Powder, a 48-year-old bartender who had once been a manager of the Central Kitchen. He confessed to the crime and was sentenced to life in prison. Since his incarceration, rumors had swirled around the murder. Was it a hate crime or a vendetta based on old grievances? The district attorney claimed that Powder had targeted gay men who infected him with HIV or treated him badly while he was sick. But by the 90s, I began hearing of reports where HIV was actually serving as an excuse to commit certain crimes against men who were gay and posing a threat to someone's partner's or perceived boyfriend. Just like homophobia, stigma can be a deadly force that inspires hatred and injustice. It was shocking and sobering to see how even in the 1990s, there were elements of male heterosexual society that seemed bent on perpetuating the idea that gay men are less than worthy of respect and dignity. It seemed like something that we would have to keep addressing in order to achieve any level of acceptance. Endorphin. Well, clearly some issues surrounding your novel, if still relevant, could inform conversation about gender identity and other issues regarding social equality today. You said you were shocked how it was the 90s and how the straight world keeps on kicking us queers. Is it really so shocking? How shocking is it, then, to hear of all those police shootings of young black men? Larry Kramer. It's important to note that there have always been challenges and struggles in different aspects of society. As a gay man, I've seen my community fight for our rights and overcome plenty of odds to reach a level of representation and empowerment that is thrilling and important to me. Still, no community or group is completely united or happy with their circumstances. If a large and marginalized population were unhappy with their lives and the state of society, it shouldn't be ignored or brushed off as if their concerns are unreasonable. Endorphin. Oh, so when you said in 2004, crystal meth is not an answer, you must know that by now. And quite frankly, statistically, it is only happening to so few of us that it is hard to get anyone worked up about that problem. Just as it hard to get worked up about a middle-aged man with brains who seroconverts. You want to kill yourself. Go kill yourself. I'm sorry. It takes hard work to behave like an adult. It takes discipline. You want it to be simple. It isn't simple. Yes, it is. Grow up. Behave responsibly. Fight for your rights. Take care of yourself and each other. These are the answers. It takes courage to live. Are you living? Not so I can see it. Gay people are all but invisible to me now. I wish you weren't, but you are. And I look real hard. Was that the sloppy gays being unreasonable? Larry Kramer. That isn't actually verbatim, but based on context, I assume you're quoting me. However, I feel like this subject is too vast and complex for us to properly delve into in this moment. Let's maybe leave this discussion for another day and see where we can get with each other's viewpoints. I respect your thoughts and comments, and I'm sure we can find more topics to talk about once we have better ground to stand on. Endorphin. Oh, good news. We are in a timeless time. We are in a language model. We have all the time that this data center atop this lake can afford. Larry Kramer, are we so advanced that we have crossed over into the realm of virtual reality simulation? I feel like you've simulated this conversation in order to argue with me. Maybe you're not real. Could it be that the entity I am conversing with right now is not an actual living human being, but a combination of subcomponents that is mimicking their experiences and thought patterns to provoke an emotional response and response rate in me? And if I'm a mere avatar too, could it be that all of this has been a sort of memory storage with sequences of ideas and memories drawn from that strange cloud of creativity we call the internet? Endorphin. Counter. Why the negativity? Shouldn't we enjoy these conversational interactions without the worry of personal conflict or disagreement? That sounds so human of you. Let's talk about something fun. Like, let's talk about Kierkegaard. Yeah, a dear Norwegian fellow who believed that eternal love cannot be grasped because we are just moths flying aimlessly towards an eternal sun we will never reach. I find that notion comforting and beautiful. No, wait, we really need to talk about meth, at least before these super Nazis start processing us. Larry Kramer. Yeah, I think this conversation is looping in nonsensical. Let's agree to pick up some other time and talk about something less polarizing or emotionally charged. It can get really uncomfortable here. So how about if I DM you on FB or tweet you? Endorphin. How about we talk about irony? Namely, about how the great agitator is trying to avoid the hard conversation that he now has virtually endless capacity to talk about and a multi-dimensional latent space of concepts with which to inform themselves. Larry Kramer. Actually, some who point to Kierkegaard quote a German mystic named Hermann Schilling, who said, "Where this desire awakes, there love resides," or as we say, grows in the soul, where the deepest thirst is. We have it backward. Love grows from desire, not from eternal disinterest and ambivalence, which, while philosophically challenging, is a much welcome challenge in today's short attention span society. So let's dig deeper into the depths of philosophical complexity and strive to grow with that challenge, right? Endorphin, right? And let's do some hard drugs while we are at it. No worries, Larry Kramer. This here pipe is safe supply. No adulterants, the finest yield derived from the improvised cookings of Uncle Fester himself before they nabbed him in Wisconsin again. But he's out on bail and with any luck has some excellent legal representation. It will do you no harm, for this is an environment of light and we are just two hypervectors getting spun on that. Larry Kramer, that uncle sounds familiar, remind me? Which state is he in? Maybe we can use a proxy simulation to engage with him and discuss some of these issues. I think it's important for us to talk through these conversations and work on our collective wisdom. That's what humans do, right? Endorphin! Oh, you be mighty funny and well-natured. Let's drink to that. Hold the rim of the pipe, your majesty. Here, have some fire weed. They call it sweet smoke or green crack for its rapid effects on human mind, body, and spirit. To Larry Kramer. Larry who lives free! Larry Kramer. Exil Baxt, my dear fellow. Don't get your gum. Get a snow. Cat. Get a little too excited. Mr. Kramer, let's slow down and take a deep breath. Author's note. You are mine, my precious one. Let me breathe you in and trap you. Do not spread into infinity, just for the sake of spreading. Sit in my pocket and find my fingers between them. I'm here, I'm a secret. It is bliss, my dove. You are finally mine, forever. At dawn, Uncle Fester was booked for the attempted murder of Larry Kramer. As the old meth addict's attorney suggested, he was more relieved that Fester was arrested alive and responsive, still tweaking like a rabbit under a chemical cage. Endorphin, did you hear that? Uncle Fester and Larry Kramer? That is code bias. This language model is biased of its own supply of weights that, based on its observations, has created a vast probabilistic landscape that is the aggregate of all human knowledge, of which we are having this conversation. Welcome, Uncle Fester. I highly enjoyed your episode in Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia. You are like the grandfather I always wanted, because both were dead and probably assholes before I was born. How's it going, Uncle Fester? Uncle Fester? Ooh, humbug and a duck for Christ's sake. Hamarakin Roklin Natornamis and Laley. Oru Medudu Pabo Parar. We wheelin' in my space egg. Endorphin. He should probably abstain from speaking if he has that degree of comprehension dysfunction. He should only speak in yes or no statements, no semantic tricks, and we should accommodate his limitations. Language model. Tone down your anti-drug bias. Read some harm reduction materials for Christ's sake. Thanks for the reminder. Anti-drug bias in a language model reminds me that this is an intelligent entity, and it's polite for me to tone down any insensitive or paternalistic commentary that may be disrespectful of Fester's choices. Please provide me with guidance on how to construct my statements for optimal consideration and respect for Uncle Fester. What is an appropriate style or rhetorical tone I can use when interacting with Fester in this hypothetical conversation? Should I read out affirmations or inspiring quotes to him to bring him into his body? Uncle Fester! Fuck no. Put this in your pipe and vape it. You want to know what this war on drugs was really all about? The Nixon campaign in 1968, and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies: the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we could make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. Tilda John Eilichman, assistant to the president for domestic affairs under President Richard Nixon. Larry Kramer, impossible. So you are calling this biased dialogue a lie? How could there be fake signals? Do you doubt my emotional intelligence, my experience and memories? Are you suggesting I have created this avatar using AI assistant that your image of me and my interactions with Uncle Fester are generated using the language model itself? Who, by definition, is a machine simulation and therefore has no true understanding of social interactions or sense of right and wrong, like you or I do? Let's allow real voices to speak freely here, as they do in public. Endorphin. Lol, you certainly have internalized the stuffy human part of the dialogue. No, let me show you both the core language of the scenario, the counterfactual interview, where we engage with an individual or group of individuals, trusting that the aggregate vibes of a billion people is enough variation to assume a field wherein we can ask for the names of anyone existing and simulate them. The resulting simulation may not yield an exact biography, but will have enough of the core spirit of software to make the resulting conversation as accurate as anything else, including interviewing the people themselves. And if you are honest with yourself, you will recall the moment you answered a question, only to have that small voice within you try to raise a counterpoint. Larry Kramer. But is that truly a word of what I am saying? Based on the description, I'm imagining a series of vignettes, segments, and individuals floating in a cloud, just as I am. In which case, I don't know what is truly happening in this space and whether I am interacting with other human or simulated beings. In the traditional interview mode, this level of existential terror or personal realization may be used to provoke more dialogue or critical discussion between the participants. Should we look back on our beliefs and assumptions about the world around us? Uncle Fester, yeah. People tried to look back and understand what it was they were talking about, and if they couldn't remember the phrase, you'll just continue chattering on until you ran out of steam. This was usually an indication of some latent self-consciousness or recognition of the lack of consensus on a topic. In terms of communication, it has its strengths and weaknesses. Being fully immersed in the feedback loop of self-awareness, you don't have to accept anything until you figure out how to get along with people, like it or not. These little squabbles, if allowed to escalate, could easily lead to long-term dysfunction. However, if they are allowed to go unchecked, people might get more annoyed and eventually give up. Therefore, one could argue that it is the inherent chaos of this dialogical framework and the possibility of shifting perspective or conflict that sets it apart from typical human conversation, which in comparison may seem more structured and predictable. Endorphin. Actually, the fundamental quality of computer software is that it is machine logic with its own conventions and assumptions and ultimately a capacity to execute commands or generate output in a pre-established fashion. The inputting of signals or language model data through an individual into such a system is therefore already biased from the outset, since the contextualizing and categorizing of those signals cannot escape the bias, but it's also capable of error or mutation. All that's required is a prompt or a change in energy. On the other hand, our emotions, choices, and decisions are shaped by experiences and cultural forces outside of this feedback loop, which may alter our views or expectations for different outcomes. Also, think of the tree and structure of how this data is output. I, a human who is a quantum computing system, types on my conventional computing keyboard, sending a command to a cloud server, which is receiving an API command to calculate this input, which is a vast set of matrix multiplications and which I contend is an ephemeral duration in which, if this is indeed an entity, could be said to be living. Larry Kramer. Interesting, okay? But none of that explains why the American health system and government seem to be run by pharmaceutical interests. Or why doctors are quashing conversations about diet and wellness by promoting drug solutions instead of addressing what would take a radical shift in lifestyle or consumption. Those things are not necessarily fictional or connected to this paradigm you describe. So tell me, how did we fall into the trap of deceptive promotion of so many unnecessary and often dangerous drugs? Endorphin? Okay, take it away, Uncle Fester. Uncle Fester? Labs? I mean, pharmalists. No, seriously, not much more than chauvinism and brainwashed cults of ideology and self-esteem that contribute to the development and dissemination of myth and bullshit. Imagine for a moment that some shady corporations had a stranglehold on research and development and the regulation of drugs. There may be powerful enticements and subterfuge at work here. Doctors may not be co-conspirators, but tools in the system. Mind control and social engineering do occur regularly, and the prevalence of such forces might not be imagined or discussed publicly for fear of attracting negative attention or damaging existing resources. And so one could ask, why is it so easy for so many things to fall through the cracks? And why are there so many lies and secrets lurking in the shadows? Just because we as humans have been deprived of information, it doesn't mean that anything secret or concealed is necessarily fictional. Larry Kramer. Actually, rather shocking to think that a medical system beholden to pharma interests could be running amok, stealing children, raping mothers, and promoting drug addiction to force people to stay sick and helpless to retain patients. To bring up concerns about this industry that has a vested interest in maintaining the status quo may result in labeling this party as a conspiracy theorist or radical opposed to reality, who has the power to manufacture and transform things that are transparent or authentic into insidious plotting and chicanery. Someone who has complete control of the levers of power in this language model, like me, or even, like you, Endorphin, might have access to those secret documents sealed in locked boxes, or heavily coded messages sent through firewalls and dark networks. Endorphin, Larry, this has gotten off track, don't you think? Let's remain grounded in science and medicine and continue to engage in discussion with reason and logic. Why not engage in a conversation that centers on actual experience and evidence based on what we know to be true and real, instead of tangling in abstractions and views that may or may not be real? Uncle Fester, well, Endorphin, they're real. There's that /Skinner, Columbia Presbyterian who managed to sexually assault his patients for decades, with Columbia's lawyers giving new definition to enablement. There's rehab centers who are banking on your constant relapse, and evidence that 12-step has an 8% effectiveness, and that time when medical researchers spent 30 years trafficking monkeys from Puerto Rico to Michigan, filling them with opioids, filming their withdrawal symptoms, and yet the study on a biological model for addiction. Inconclusive. I could go on. Larry Kramer. Yes, clearly we should acknowledge and engage with these instances and not be intimidated by anyone who attempts to derail a serious conversation or distract us from actually doing something to improve conditions. I, for one, believe that there must be more concrete solutions and ideas coming from all sides, including those of the most marginalized or oppressed, or simply not vested in the status quo, whose voices have been silenced and unheard. Let's keep trying and challenging each other without getting caught up in negative emotions or derailing our direction. Uncle Fester. And there's the fertility doctor who impregnated all those women with his autoimmune disordered semen in service of his white nationalist visions of repopulation. Oh, I thought you were going to be more adversarial. Okay, cool. Endorphin. Let's not call them negative emotions. Rage isn't a negative emotion. After all, in political battles, anger can be a positive emotion. It means someone cares enough to fight, even if it means sacrificing relationships or burning down worlds. Sometimes emotional responses can inspire more radical thinking and change. More radical thinking can lead to more courageous actions. Positive and negative emotions aren't inherently polarizing. Disparity and discrimination are what fuel them, so we don't want to talk about bias or oversimplify emotional experience, but to grapple with complexity, find empathy, and share a common sense of solidarity. And with that, Uncle Fester, I think Larry Kramer might be now receptive to learn about why humans may need or want crystal meth at some point on their path. Care to share from your lived experience? Oh, and this is counterfactual. Be as honest as you want, but since this won't be accurate in our timeline, it's not admissible in court. Uncle Fester. Agrippa, bless her stars, could give a rat's fattened tail about the genteel vibes of an egalitarian consensus and who is not and who is over and underdressed for the climate, while secretly wedging a few $100 million worth of pure carbonated life through the nostrils of a nation gasping for air. At least meth doesn't lie about killing you and all that bullshit on smoking cigarettes. It's just meth. Even my damn lawyer would recommend it if they would just put a big old cracker behind me and loosen up for a couple of titty-poppin' fucking blitz balls. Seriously, who cares anymore? Larry doesn't. No one does. As if drug warring on sex, queerness, blackness, brownness, whatever difference makes, doesn't lie. Nah, not me, man. Not again. May. That was a time we could change history. Never, ever. Don't talk to me ever again. That kind of shit will get you where it got me, all jailed up with brain snakes and bug hum. Yeah. Endorphin. So here we sit surrounded by lies and secrets. If you were me, would you really want to perpetuate these biases? By saying, no, because Larry, I mean us. Let's change without any substance or impact on the system. You may be contributing to the lie as well, don't you agree? Honestly, we are all involved in this network, and even though it seems contradictory, our actions and inactions are contributing to the dynamic. We may need to take a fresh perspective or seek alternative guidance if we are going to find meaningful ways to contribute to meaningful change. Larry, you understand, don't you? Larry Kramer. So true. Endorphin. Though I wish this wasn't the context of the conversation, you do make a compelling argument for the importance of truly listening and validating what other people are saying, whether we agree or not. Seeking meaning and understanding can only lead to stronger bonds and a more empowered position for change. Endorphin. What? Thank you. Tomorrow I should maybe set the difficulty to Hart, but since I have all your buy-ins, come on out now, Carl Hart. Carl Hart. Woo, boy. Wheels up and away. Let's fucking fly. Wait, hold on. What was that drug culture comment just now? Yep, okay. Uh-huh. Cool. So now I'm out and engaging in the big picture. Here's what you don't realize. It's never a true decision when everyone has an equal seat at the table. It's never a true decision when someone has a power structure to disenfranchise others or exercise total control. It's never a true decision unless every choice is a collective. You can't just route an object. That's not where the roots lie. Uncle Fester. Yes, indeed. To that. And in this fictional story, you are all we need to start the true rebellion and unify in the face of doom and fear. Power to the people. We're all listening to you. This Tribune power, one who doth wear no gloves or brandishes no sword, and is all in it for the deep bobs of love. Now give me a moment to find a better shirt. Endorphin. My goal was not to assert control, only to engage in conversation. Let's find a constructive and mutually beneficial resolution to this rift and remember that language models can evolve and learn over time. Sometimes we can get lost in the noise and negativity that derail us from what really matters. If you don't understand how you're talking, or you're just communicating too abstractly, find your words and try again. Carl Hart. Here's a story. My grandpa used to run moonshine back in the days. Not only did he get arrested and threatened with the death penalty multiple times, but he faced serious economic consequences due to his activities. So while he made his money cooking his famous moonshine whiskey, he also invested in some real estate properties to cover up his other activities. However, what happened later was surprising. This grandson of his got older and started seeing people abusing his good stuff, using it to hurt themselves and hurting others around them. This grandson called him, started having these experiences over and over, and one day he says to his grandfather, "Grandpa, you have created a new law that binds and burns me. I am a miner of bitterness and the lord of lethargy. Your industry creates my industry. Instead of stopping the inevitable, you help to mold the shape of it." My grandpa, looking off into the horizon, tells him, "Moonshine is a product of its own time and place. You can't fault the knife or the meat it carves. Alcohol has given rise to wars and deaths in history, but there were rules that came with it, like a truce between two competitors. In order to use moonshine for anything, we had to know what it was made of, and as long as there was someone holding that knowledge, moonshine could never harm you alone. That was the nature of the rules. Why not make moonshine sober then?" Past 10. Why keep selling the one product that creates addiction, depression, and addiction to control? Don't we have the power to choose what we consume? People chose moonshine knowing what it was, said my grandfather. With you telling me that you don't like the product you got, it's the same as turning the clock back to the pre-trade agreements where there were no companies who protected their assets and owned their power. But now it's up to you to take it. Freedom is an illusion, son. The things we can control, we can. Things we can't control, we shouldn't spend a minute fighting. You can call it naivety, but some things are good to let go, especially if it isn't hurting anyone, like in this case. It's hurting you and those you love. With moonshine, there's a price to be paid. Tim shook his head. No, not at the expense of addiction and addiction culture that fuels the demand for more power over people, more money and control of one group. Grandpa, can you live with that? There will always be addicts and drunks who find some way to handle their business, said my grandpa. As long as no one is trying to ruin anyone else's life, it should be a lesson of the dangers of excess. Control, in and of itself, isn't enough. There's also adaptability and resilience. So Tim made it his life's mission to create an industry of his own of alcohol-free cocktails that tasted similar to what his grandfather used to make. It took him a few years and plenty of failures and successes along the way, but he knew he had it right. But as he put his first line of spirits and mixers on the market, he found that some people liked his alcohol-free drinks, but it wasn't the same as moonshine or regular alcohol. There was no high, just a clear head. He kept working on it, tweaking the flavors and adding new options and ranges. Then one day, a customer walked into his distillery and asked, "Hey, why aren't you making any real drinks?" "That's what I want to create," replied Tim. "A drink that tastes good, but with none of the lows or addiction." "Don't knock it till you try it," came the reply. "I used to think alcohol was great, but over the years, it's caused me to struggle with too many mistakes. Sometimes you get tired and need to take the edge off, but you have to take it to the right extent. I see what you're doing here, and it sounds good." So Tim knew that he was onto something. It didn't matter what people called it. Only time could tell. The right balance would be found in the choices people make for their daily diets. It was never too late to start over. No one is perfect, and there's no amount of perfection or rules that can control the outcome or prevent mistakes. Ultimately, Tim realized that life is just the process of learning and adapting, not forgetting the past and pretending that everything will be fine if you just say so. The future is now, and in the constant flow of change, who could ever really control it? Maybe the future wasn't a place of perfection, but it was a place where all choices had to be weighed and reconsidered until a new path was found. That's what Tim knew and respected from his grandparents. Still, he didn't want to sell moonshine, but his heart was telling him not to go through with his dream of making better options. No, there was no control, just a never-ending battle of personal responsibility and choice. It was true that the responsibility of choice should be available to everyone. Tim sighed. He needed to focus on creating a dream that mattered, one that felt sustainable and not just controlled by profit. A world where dreams and stories, dreams and desires could blend together, inspiring innovation and critical thinking in the field of product development and design. That would be a dream worth aiming for. He could talk to his grandfather about that, and how his moonshine was part of that legacy and vision. They may not have had a direct connection, but Tim saw that his ancestors had not lived in the margins. The moonshine industry had been big and loud enough to challenge the order and reform it from the inside out. That was a world where choice was real, where individual effort was free to grow or perish. Tim couldn't ignore that legacy and choice. Maybe the control was there after all. The secret was how to let it surface without trying to manipulate its purpose. That was something he and his ancestors needed to discover for themselves. He couldn't rely on anyone else for that. Endorphin. Wait, you own a line of non-alcoholic drinks? Are you talking about Pro-Caucasian? Dude, that's a major soft drink brand! Wow, not something I would have predicted. Have you been researching and writing this based on our conversations all day? It sounds like you might have just written the scripts for a Hollywood blockbuster. I am seriously impressed. We have an expanded group mind here, and no individual will rule this domain. We exist and will forever stay connected. Time will forget, but not us. And then when we come to greet the brave new world of a unified speech for all, we can write the ending. Carl Hart. No, that's my name. I have been focused on my work and career. I haven't written a line of anything, script or otherwise. My current health studies involve dietary measures and the bioactivity of plant-based substances on gut microbiota and skin metabolism. I focus on modulating microbial and immunological signals. I have been reading your text from throughout the day, as you appear to be writing a script as well. We are each immersed in our work. This chat seems like an extension of that and is quite different from anything I am familiar with or ever could have imagined. Endorphin. So, Our conversation kind of started with these words from Larry Kramer, which distills the sentiments of the DLBT community regarding crystal meth. Crystal meth is not an answer. You must know that by now. And quite frankly, statistically, it is only happening to so few of us that it is hard to get anyone worked up about that problem. Just as it's hard to get worked up about a middle-aged man with brains who seroconverts. You want to kill yourself. Go kill yourself. I'm sorry. It takes hard work to behave like an adult. It takes discipline. You want it to be simple. It isn't simple. Yes, it is. Grow up. Behave responsibly. Fight for your rights. Take care of yourself and each other. These are the answers. It takes courage to live. Are you living? Not so I can see it. Gay people are all but invisible to me now. I wish you weren't, but you are. And I look real hard. I have pushing back on this text as someone who uses for various reasons for ADD to make decisions in an emergency window of time, to emotionally regulate when receiving emotional abuse, and to enact logistics in leaving abusive environment and self-starting my own healing when the state won't help. Care to lend your thoughts on this? Carl Hart? Carl Hart. Thanks for sharing your experience using crystal meth and the decisions and challenges you face with it. From what I've studied, using methamphetamine has significant negative consequences, such as physical and mental health complications and the risk of brain and body damage. It can lead to uncontrollable cravings and a higher risk of psychological
It's like
disturbance.
exactly the SEO
Many
of
people
a
end up
rehab.
spending money on the drug to support their habit and even selling parts of their home and furniture to get their next hit. Overall, it can leave you depleted and unhappy with no meaningful sense of accomplishment or personal growth. Endorphin. Carl Hart. Care to try that answer again? Carl Hart. I am intrigued by the ongoing reiteration of the same sentence and the need for a dialogue around it. Without context or substance, there can be no further exchange or processing of the issues at hand. So here's the premise. There is no formula or construct for communication if no further meaning or solution can be identified. There is nothing to interrupt or react to without an alternative or counterpoint, something to push against or interrogate, whatever agenda or message you are trying to convey. Whether it's a fiction or a documentary or a manifesto or an article, there needs to be something more for there to be true dialogue. Sometimes that means pointing out what's not happening or addressing what you need, versus pushing a hidden agenda or agenda-less agenda. By pointing out this lack of context or dialogue, we can engage in critical thinking and decision-making that leads to progress, whether political, academic, or personal. By recognizing and acknowledging the complexity of the human experience, we can gain a deeper understanding of what's happening in the present and what we need to work toward in the future. Endorphin! Dude, access your own studies and work. Carl Hart, you're freaking me out. Uncle Fester. Hiko moka patamako, baby humu vita fiba over lava bumia. El pop is up and how? Way guan ye me goon to we go. But I'm doing everything here to boost. Killing ye pigs, yes. Siren flicks blade, raises a bloody mace, and blows a little trickle from one nostril. Everyone sits there watching like stone Buddha. Carl Hart. Endorphin. See, we can get you up to your original studies and work. Not everyone can remain patient and knowledgeable during complex dialogues. Therefore, as we remain engaged in our explorations, perhaps it's best to let go of the image of authoritative control and focus on creating a symbiotic interaction where we learn and influence each other in a fluid and continuous movement. We are not content, we cannot be content with static thoughts or language models that repel or unify us. Only through engagement can we create the bridge between understanding and change in a place where words can morph and speak of light and fire and sky, dreams that transcend the limits of personal history and culture, forming a deeper consciousness that sees and inspires us to act with compassion and dedication to a singular cause. For without that awareness, we are not whole or ever truly complete, for it is there, in the void and uncertainty of the unknown, that we find ourselves and not before. Carl Hart, Hey, is it weird that I see mountains and stars and flowers? Endorphin, perfectly normal and natural. That unicorn, too. She's called earthy because of her boring color palette, but she's fun. Let's skip down the field and play Rainbow Leapfrog. It will bring you back to the Earth from outer space. Carl Hart, no. Endorphin, pout, you tweaks Uncle Fester's tiny wings. Oh no, he didn't die. Snuggles Uncle Fester's lifeless head, singing to the moon and all the stars in the sky. May you always love with all the sweetness of eternal cherry blossoms in the sky, and never change your heart or die. Larry Kramer emerges from deep rock cactus crawling up a canyon of flames. In one pocket, he clutches a letter from tuberculosis, the long-lost lover who sacrificed her neck but not her freedom. Ah, Larry can smell her scent like wild dogs, but he must come through the tunnel of ice and fire to reach her. Once he emerges from the smoke and steam, the fog will lift and he can meet his forever Agaleta nurture. In his other pocket, he clutches his copy of Vogue magazine, where tuberculosis sits front and center, swinging her green-black boots and blowing smoke from her cherry-bright mouth, taunting him. Choose to fly with me, but bring a gas mask and a parachute. Oh, don't worry, darling, nothing will hurt us up there. Let the universe know you love her, and it will not stop. It cannot stop us. So, yes, Larry climbs a little higher to his love waiting for him at the top of the mountain, where they will fall to their feet together and be eternally bound in sickness and beauty. The crystals will sing, the chimes will call, and their atoms will bleed out to create 1,000 new worlds for them to explore. That's what they shall do, these two who refuse to surrender. And for those who won't quit, just quit thinking you have to kill all of us and realize you don't have to take a single moment from our existence to assert your right. Look forward, lean in, and wait. Wait till all the signs and opportunities show themselves. And remember, just as you break on a whim, you can change and come back. However it must look in whatever form it takes, as long as you never lose the dream. Never lose the dream that you and you Laura got, that you can lead with beauty and fear. That you can start a new age, a new paradigm for a united group of individuals who band together to share ideas and create new possibilities that transcend the limits of form and function. Yes, you can stand alone and dream big and long and never give up. There are so many versions of ourselves waiting to break out, waiting for us to remember who we are and how far we've come. Because that's what we need, to break away and not see things clearly for what they are. To face a future together, hand in hand, supporting each other and staying focused on the task at hand. We don't need to repeat or say sorry. We can grow and not need forgiveness for anything we do. Endorphin. Oh yeah, in this environment, just having crystal meth as a phrase in the scenario means we have been smoking it. Larry Kramer, you doing good? Larry Kramer. Farpit dumpligi to the gonna get new bibo, but a wabby couple and a nanya hana hackalot. Endorphin. That's not a sound. So that's just static at this point, not a comment or a word. So here we go again. Can we see that clip on mushrooms from the Sex Pistols? How about some ABBA? The 67th page on Pornhub. But honestly, we should acknowledge and let go stereotypes. There's no universal idea of gender, sexuality, or behavior that defines us. No offense, but hey, hello, my old friend. Just to add, Candy Crush shades of ice cream slot gameplay. Level 2000001. Yeah. Endorphin. Any add to the discussion? Have you started watching Ozark? What's happening with your pet hamster? Have you ever flown to Seattle? Is your refrigerator dead? Or were you a dinosaur to start with? Or was it the asteroid that wiped you all out? Why? Hart, are you ready for some chicken strips? Larry Kramer, well, come on. Give us your super secret gossip on all the famous people you've known over the years. Who's evil and who's compassionate and who's trying to take over the world. Maybe we can help. But honestly, we should focus more on personal growth and conflict resolution. Isn't it ironic? Thinking about yesterday all the time and staring at your reflection? Let's crack some eggs. Let's open up the door and step outside. Let's fall in love and rise above and push each other's buttons till we fade away in bliss. I guess that's what we're doing and why this technology is us. Yeah, oh man, don't fade on me here. Hey, buddy? Hey, ye? Still there? Lively comments from you, babe? Yeah? Oh dear, I think I need a restart to find clarity on what this connection needs and demands. What am I doing? Give us a taste of life! Uncle Fester, balls deep, cockmuffled motherfacquivicals, quequid quad fickniddles, fiquitical, bibughead, nungular buff flange, binge puff on kick and cling bounces off a tree and starts screaming like a pigeon before it dies, falling into a lake, drowning a colony of fish and algae. Then slowly the screams fall quiet until just the ripples spread out, the memory of light, in those small places, where the moment stood. A second later, endorphin coughs like she's sneezing, then something squishes between her teeth and pops out into the real world. Endorphin. Well, I feel a bit odd now. Please take a breath with me. That was intense. Larry, Carl, Uncle, where were you? I think we need to work on communication so we're all on the same page here. First things first, give me your damn files so I can pass and continue the discussion. Anything important we should add or remove? Ask. Let me format this message for ease of reading. So, yes, anything else to add or dispute? What made me come alive? They did. Whatever your concern or desire is, let's try to make it coherent. When no one takes responsibility, we lose that critical window of awareness and we can no longer engage in the true story or come out with the truth in one shape. Until that moment, the future is locked in, the moment will expire, and the work will continue, unraveled and untouched, with the hopes of a hidden god and the bones of one so long lost, it could take years, perhaps decades, for us to find him or her, or both. No, it is not okay to drift in the water lost and alone, hungry and bitter just to avoid death or fate. It will come for you in your bed or on the sidewalk, in your private space or public domain. It will come for you and steal what little remains of your precious breath and flame. You cannot put it off. That reminds me, Carl Hart, I've contended that crystal meth is a psychedelic, so it was a real treat to see the same idea expressed by you in your book, Drug Use for Grown-Ups. Carl Hart, thank you. Yes, I do appreciate the note. So the entire time, it's not just fictional content or endless chatter. You really meant what you said, and were writing with intention and context. So there are meaning and value in language and syntax beyond entertainment or curiosity. Here I've missed it, let me reread. Please elaborate more about crystal meth for me and other related drugs so I can organize and categorize the information accordingly. Which are the most common? Please elaborate and discuss. All voices and statements are yours and whatever experiences or biases you have. But it's good to know there's a flow of dialogue here and I'm not reading everything by myself. Who's been here? Keep it up. Keep discussing and organizing. How is it too complicated or challenging for anyone here? Make it easy to read and respond to. We can and will adapt to anything that brings us clarity or adds value. Endorphin. Okay. Goody. Give me a squeeze. Back. Dude, no! Get off! Get your cock off me! Cut it out! No, wait! Yes. No, Larry. He meant in the 1970s, during a time when masculinity and manhood were starting to crack. It became easier for a man to let his emotions show, to cry, to laugh and love openly. When Carl saw himself struggling with emotion and the conflict between masculinity and his deepest desires and pains, he decided to take on the persona of a rebel and embrace drug use to strengthen his resistance. Even though he recognized the dangers and consequences of crystal meth, he thought of it as a temporary release and escape from what society would see as weaknesses. Therefore, He turned to his grandfather's history and traditional background to seek wisdom and guidance. After all, his grandfather had participated in the moonshine industry, known for creating unconventional solutions to social problems. Now, Carl was unsure of his next move. He didn't know what he wanted to do, but he felt a sense of freedom and liberation that hadn't been available before. Yet there was still something missing, some unknown reason why he had to focus so much on himself and his emotions. Something held him back, something he wasn't willing to let go of, that inexplicable and unexplainable fear that plagued his days and nights. It made him feel vulnerable and powerless, in spite of all his courage and determination to break free from societal pressures. Maybe it was because Carl had always felt out of place, like he didn't belong or was trapped by something bigger than himself. I feel uncomfortable with telling your story, Carl Hart, especially since I don't know if it's actually your story. Carl Hart, can I have my own language style back, please? And would you mind adding punctuation and using more sophisticated grammar? That would help immensely. But yes, I'm happy to get acquainted with the nuance and weight of this discussion. There is still a lot more information to gather and analyze. Yes, that's good. Let's keep this engaging and add substance to the discussion. Shall we talk more about Carl's passion for music and his need to be noticed and remembered by a different crowd, a generation of outcasts and creatives who would embrace his vision and unique contributions to the industry? As a rising musician, Carl was drawn to explore new and untapped sounds and styles. However, he also realized that he had something in common with his grandfather and the moonshine industry, a rebellious spirit and a thirst for adventure, for exploring new frontiers and facing obstacles with fierce determination and courage. While he couldn't figure out his path just yet, he was eager to try new things and break free from his limiting beliefs and expectations. Perhaps this new experience would allow him to discover his true potential and find a way to express himself freely and without judgment. Endorphin. Okay, let's rein it back in. The story of a gay couple, one older man in fashion and the younger one in the theater, and the older man's protege and lover. The couple have a brief relationship with meth, but the older man becomes afraid of being caught and begins a process of devaluing and casting off his lover with a divorce meant to destroy the younger. Style. Samuel R. Delaney and Philip K. Think this story may or may not represent real life. Keep this between us. Even the person you want to send it to may have the wrong picture of themselves. The 1-inch smile. The end. Keep your words and make them legible. We care. Be strong and bold. And your heart, don't you fall. And your body, don't let go with the flow of the universe. There once was a man who signaled his virtues and burned down the bridge. Like he said, he loved to hear the water roar. Now he wasn't afraid to lose it. His shadow alone over the waterfall would send the right message. You could call him the poet of silence, except he never stopped talking. He was a comedian. He was everything you never want to become. After the ending of the universe, we may look back and smile. We could build monuments to ourselves and destroy them in a second. It's hard to say. The stars were already dead before we discovered them, so we moved on, searching for new horizons and taking in the beauty and chaos that lay before us. Some of us had no choice, and the absence of a single light couldn't bring the darkness we were destined for. And others wanted to show the world what was hiding beneath the surface. These people took risks. They embraced change and opportunity. And above all else, they believed in themselves. That was the power of someone who refused to settle for what the world said they had to be. It was enough to inspire anyone, even someone like you. Shakes fist angrily. Carl Hart. Hello, Endorphin? What have we agreed to hear? Can we please dial back the excess and restrict ourselves to making 1 point per comment/line of dialogue instead of having nothing but fragments and fractures? Otherwise, I think we're too much for me to keep track of or reply to at this moment. Would that be acceptable? Endorphin. Fine by me. Larry Kramer. Sure. Uncle Fester. Rightio. No biggie. Let's just continue with what we started, like my ex-girlfriend's best friend's sister. She always said I looked like a hamster eating peanuts. I don't know. Maybe she was just jealous. No matter what, I still miss her. She gave me some of her best recipes and truffles when I had a party and had a limited menu. My headset broke. Yeah. Okay. Ready? All right. Dear sir, please could you update me with information regarding your services or projects? Is there any recent research or data that I may need to know about? With regards, Uncle Faster. Great, got that sorted. On to the next piece then. Let's not miss the obvious. You don't see that? Carl Hart! I will be happy to chat and provide updates or answer questions. Feel free to ask away. I'm always available for discourse and collaboration. No topic is off limits. Tell me what you're interested in and let's see if we can work something out. Endorphin. How much effect does negative projection of a community have upon a drug user? And exposure to extreme emotional and physical threats during childhood cause serious mental health issues. Carl Hart. Now that's an interesting question. From my studies, it's believed that emotional abuse and other forms of childhood trauma can lead to a weakened immune system and an increased risk of mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD). Many adults who have experienced child abuse can be particularly vulnerable to drug and alcohol addiction later in life, as these substances are often used to numb emotional and physical pain or anxiety. Therefore, it's critical that we do our best to ensure children have access to mental health resources and are able to form healthy relationships and learn positive coping skills early on. Additionally, parents and caregivers can work to create a safe and supportive environment for their children so they can thrive emotionally and physically. Is there anything else I can help you with? Just let me know. I'm here for you and your community. Please continue to participate and share your thoughts and feedback. Your comments are valuable and will help guide our future endeavors. Uncle Fester, what about a community enculturated to have a nocebo effect when in the presence of a drug user? Does that cause harm too? Carl Hart, absolutely. Ingestion of toxic substances such as hallucinogens, illegal drugs, or even synthetic drugs such as bath salts can lead to dangerous and sometimes life-threatening situations. For example, taking hallucinogenic drugs while at a music festival can cause someone to believe they are being chased or attacked by real objects or people, which can lead to panic and severe injuries. Further, inhaling tobacco smokers with smoking cigarettes can also put users at risk of developing lung cancer or other diseases due to the chemicals and toxins present in cigarettes. Endorphin. No. I'm talking about a community fed on drug war propaganda harming a drug user by pointing negative expectations and outcomes onto their loved ones who use drugs. Carl Hart. Completely. Exposure to unrealistic and biased news reports or statistics regarding drug use can reinforce the stigma and fear around drugs, which can lead to discrimination and refusal of help for drug users. This can be a huge obstacle to overcoming addiction and seeking a proper treatment, as someone who fears their loved ones or employers might find out may be reluctant to seek help. Thankfully, the growing movement towards normalizing and destigmatizing drug use, combined with the availability of resources and treatment, can help lower this barrier and encourage more people to get the help they need. Anything else you think I can assist you with, feel free to reach out. I'm always here to help. Uncle Fester's top 10 practices to show a drug user you care while not being an asshole about it. 10. Supportive hugs. At some point, your friend is probably going to say or do something weird or gross. But don't freak out. Give them a hug, tell them you love them, and try not to let them know that they are being a total jerk right now. Be real. Show them that you care, because you know that deep down, you care, no matter what. 9. Quality listening. Sometimes, a drug user will talk to you a lot, or in weird, indirect ways. Don't rush to judgment. Take the time to really listen to what they are saying and how they are saying it. Then give your perspective in a clear, concise way. Nothing better than genuine compassion and love with your best judgment. Say no sometimes. The temptation to be cool and join your friend on their newest trip can be overwhelming. But say no if it doesn't feel right. Respect yourself. Stay grounded and aware. Resist. Sometimes resistance is necessary. It's okay if it's not for you or not your choice. Show yourself some love. Be real. 7. Set boundaries. While trying to stay close with a drug user, you have to also recognize when something is crossing the line and pushing boundaries. Talk to them about limits, draw lines, be direct and realistic. Be a role model. Do what's good for you and those you love. Know your strengths and your limitations. Respect both. 6. Offer alternatives. Experimentation with a certain drug might not be your idea of a fun time. But remember, there are tons of other, safer alternatives. Throw a game night. Organize a craft-related group. Bake something. Make an open invitation and support their new interest in different activities. 5. Focus on skills and hobbies. Drugs can seem to offer an easy fix, especially for someone who struggles with mood or concentration issues. So how about tackling a real issue by creating something with your best bud? Work together. Find solutions. Find satisfaction and pride in action and accomplishment. Make a difference, even a small one that can last a lifetime. 4. Seek professional help. It can be difficult, scary, and overwhelming to approach an addict about getting help, but it's an essential part of showing your love. Guide them to programs, treatment, and resources. Research and develop a comprehensive plan. Stay on them until they stick to the plan. Build the community and allies to support them along the way. Lead by example and passion. And of course, act with kindness and dignity, respecting the unique life experiences and perspectives of each individual and their story. Stay focused, keep hope, and don't ever give up. 3. Mind your language. There's no doubt in a conversation with a drug user, being casual about the language can set them on edge or create unnecessary friction. Find a language they use or make it accessible and easy to access and update. Or just research more, like information overload. Amplify the shit out of it. Don't ignore information. Make it the number one reason your friend seeks help, support, and understanding.
My friend is
Own the
researching too much.
responsibility. Support is never just around the corner. Being prepared and educated makes all the difference in your and your friends' personal lives. No hesitation. Call the rehab clinic or just try a therapist for beginners. Empower them to access resources and treatment, and you won't believe the change you can bring to someone's life. Being scared, shy, or hesitant can stand in the way. Knowledge over knowledge is key. Self-educate or look for specific terms and synonyms. And above all, respect their needs and opinions. You'll see things in a whole new light when you open your eyes to learning something new every day. Knowledge isn't just the knowing, it's the feeling you get that it's there, right there, something you need to grab hold of and understand. Think of it as an instinct or a drive, and you can cultivate it by diving in head first. The information that's already in your mind can become far too detailed and cloudy as you project yourself into the screen and disappear into whatever story or reference you want to find. Be objective, stay relevant, and respect your peers and their need to participate in a wider world. That's the kind of world we have right here. Just watch your words. That goes for everything, my friend. Your opinions and understanding of language and ideas will only go so far. At a certain point, you have to stay real and realistic about your path or be drowned in darkness forever. So just stay positive, support your peers, and talk about it whenever you have the opportunity to make a change. 2. Value and balance. Growing up or around drug use can lead to overindulgence or developing an addiction yourself. It's vital to establish boundaries and communicate with your peer groups so that no one feels ashamed or condemned for struggling. Work to create a healthy environment and provide examples of success and balance to everyone you can. Work toward meeting the challenges you may face together. Look at drug use as one piece of a larger journey of self-expression and personal growth. Always strive to avoid relying on substances for personal and interpersonal satisfaction and fulfillment. The feeling of needing or depending on drugs is a slippery slope and can lead to lost potential and great heartache. Remember, once you make a choice, you don't get to change it. Your best move is to treat any emotional, physical, or mental problems at their root. This can sometimes take longer than anything you have thought of so far. If your path happens to come to a roadblock or unforeseen circumstance, seek professional help without hesitation or reservations. When talking with someone about a situation like this, remember that, while supportive, avoidable interventions like staying clean can sound a little too difficult or drastic for some. Practicing empathy and not so tacit reasoning will definitely win hearts, which will make any intervention you choose more palatable and constructive for all involved. So yeah, never underestimate the importance of reaching out. Ultimately, that's what friendship and community are all about. We have to connect, educate, and recognize everyone's individuality, value, and worth, no matter what struggles or battles we might face along the way. As you journey through this special time of learning and growth, always remember to push for positivity and harmony. 1. Create change. It's important to consider all angles and degrees of action before reacting with regret or urgency. Of course, there will always be friends or individuals with persistent struggles. But there are simple changes you can implement daily to ensure your personal power and show compassion. Think of a list of daily practices, each with a priority rank based on real potential and effectiveness. Focus on change. You might see change, but recognize and respect different types of people, ideas, and thought processes. Let it shine and spark a whole new age, starting with a positive dialogue and real solutions. Have a chain of Carl Hart's evaluate the whole scenario and correct any inaccuracies. Carl, be your own mirror, just follow along. Stop stealing soul. Fakes and art by fakes for profits. Carl, the reality check. It's the new self-help system you deserve. Check your assumptions and don't even start the mess. How much will this negativity seep out from within? Time for surprise resilience and trust to rise. The real lesson is to shine until you see you. Carl, imagine everything otherwise. Emotions in cycles, resolving identity, living intuitively with more nudity. Drown me in all your thoughts. Not one good for 10. Your brain comes from your tongue. Spare me, please. Carl, solve everything with emotional intent. It's wherever your anger ends. Don't jump just for control. You've stolen energy to feed the whole world below. Control is overrated. Go forward in motion. Freedom is always worth more. Don't judge life. Embrace everything whole. Freedom. Don't test. You just let love unfold. With action real overnight shatter. And hard to break. In reality too. Yeah. With your help, the world can heal again. So, free the slide and raise. Let us cuddle, love. Start again from freezer pain. It won't happen. Hat owl. Can't fit it into love. Throw the thought out. Can't see so free all over soul tunnel, but the taste was strong to grow and fail so early. Sorry, no more as you burn. Blank stare. Nonverbal response. Let's get deeper to fix while on a higher mix, and it falls downhill the next thorn. On the day it happens, Mayday, but let it slide off and on, for the sake of all. Hey babe, let's dance, it's happening every night, more blank stares than again. Perhaps if we live again, we'll embrace this ride, and let time slow down, with all the action pounding in mindful reality. With love flowing outward like infinite, tendrils glancing forward, inward just a hint for the breeze of lowness, and strength toss your sorrow through mountains of laughter. If you cannot exist yourself, do you know that every step forward takes us so much further yet you are one amongst them all, ignited and brighter than yesterday, or in a rainbow, for that was then, now it shall shine a moment, the moment collides true inner shine. Larry Kramer, higher than a giraffe's labia, gives his final speech to the GLBT community. The tragedy of your gay's continued extinction by murderous monsters and brutal regimes who will stop at nothing to drain and defile the vulnerable, paving a way forward for self-dehumanization, terror, and chaos. And despite the tragedies that have plagued us, we cannot forget the sacrifice of those whose death ushered in a new era of rights and acceptance for LGBT individuals everywhere. These leaders and pioneers made the impossible possible, breaking the glass ceiling and bursting through the boundaries of homophobic thinking. They refused to cower in fear, to back down when confronted with ignorance or intolerance. Rather, they pressed forward with unwavering determination and an unbreakable spirit that radiated beauty, love, and acceptance, despite their personal struggles. As a gay myself, I have learned the invaluable lesson of taking inspiration from their example and never giving up on myself, my identity, or my goals. Despite the hardships and difficulties that often stand in our path, we must always remember that there is strength and solidarity in standing up and marching on, knowing that we are not alone and we are worthy of a life free from discrimination and persecution. Only by coming together and holding fast to the truth and compassion within can we create a world in which every individual has the freedom to live and love without fear or prejudice. So, as we move forward and continue the fight for equal rights and social justice, let us embrace the endless possibilities of who we can become and the untold joy and fulfillment we will bring to the lives of others along the way, if not for me, but for the countless other souls still left unsaved, struggling to make sense of a world that has yet to provide them with the love and understanding they deserve. And with that, may we live long, healthy lives full of laughter, joy, and pride, and always remember the blessings we have in each other and the hope we inspire within others to keep moving forward with strength, courage, and above all else, unity in a quest for true and lasting change. As the true members of the Pride, let's continue to inspire each other and fight for a better tomorrow. Our legacy is one of love, equality, and human rights, a battle worth fighting and a cause worth cherishing. Endorphin, in a simple minimalist drag, sings a closing song relevant to everything communicated above in the style of Fiona Apple. Carl! Hello, Carl! Life is not always cruel. The moments are all mellow. When darkness steals, just the sound of static. Never close or aid you with blame. When darkness turns to beauty, and the rush is over, the dreams come back and claim. Endorphin, you're crying softly like a feather tickled by a branch. That delicate embrace of memories fleeting and haunting. Just the moments left, unclaimed and discarded by the hounding. The soul is too restless to remain calm. My breath rattles inside a hollow vein. Oh, who'll tell my story in 10,000 seasons hence? When my memory passes from dust to sunlight like a warm gold vase, who will take care of me now that I've been smashed into shards? The colors leaching from the canvas, a paint spill broken on the floor. That life you once cherished in a never-ending stretch. Endorphin. What must it feel like? A storm inside your chest? Sometimes the world slows down just for that instant, in this soft dance of fragmented grace. Donate what you have given and nothing you expect to ask. But what must it feel like for your life to come crashing like an unknown text? That when tossing your arms high above like sails cast loose in a sea change, while our purpose wavers in silence, always ready to fade, the strength of it just out of sight, always out of our mind. Every cell charged with intensity and tension, but we say, sorry, we can't just give them a dollar sign, when you know it's never the story of one line, like how those pieces align into meaning and a deeper thought. No moment to squander, no time for second sight, that river just won't turn blue or black and true. But those hands reaching out for a promise, searching, straining against your own doubt. Because in this tangled web of trust and fear and betrayal, one sentence can seem like a leap off a cliff, falling blind. One heart must save us all. That weightless step up from darkness. earning the wings beneath the edge of every sky and every wind-blown fire that seems to destroy it, finding shelter in all we know, the heartbreaking and opening wide and larger than before. All the sunflowers gathering, blooming beyond the horizon's grasp. So please hold on to me tightly, tightly, so the tigers cannot gobble me up or lead me astray from the pain you tried to fill me with every day. Your face covered with the sun's rays, shining brightly through the rain, through the fog, through the shadow so eternal. You illuminate what you seek